On today's show here at Spike Week, we're diving into something that everybody is familiar with for sure. But I feel like we spend all of our time, especially in the best ball streets, basing everything around running back versus wide receiver. But there's a pretty important other position that we'll really only bring up in regards to how many tight ends to take and not what happens if a tight end breaks fantasy football. How does that change our running back strategy, wide receiver strategy, underdog versus DraftKings versus drafters versus what about Brock Bowers? The guy we've all been excited about for multiple different seasons is getting hyped to the moon by his own coaches and might just be the best receiving tight end in football already with the new coach and new quarterback play. What if he breaks fantasy football? We're going to draft some Brock Bowers teams today. We're going to talk a little bit about Brock Bowers. And of course, it's Freestyle Friday for those of you here joining live. You got to give me some prompts, some strategy ideas, and I will intertwine them into some Brock Bowers teams. We'll give away a drafter's ticket at the end, too. Let's do it.
3, 2, 1. Let's go.
GM, yes, punctuality, blame my dogs. I'm sorry, Charles. GM, Brock Bowers is the key, says Astro. Go Dogs. I knew I could get Denver. Shout out Denver Dog, Spike Week Discord member. We start talking about some Georgia Bulldogs, and he's hooked. Mac, let's draft some winners today. I agree. GM, Roni, GM, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy Freestyle Friday for those who have not joined before. We're going to have some fun today. I want to talk a little bit of Brock Bowers just because, quite frankly, I'm drafting a shit ton of Brock Bowers, and I feel like it's something that probably needs to be discussed. And as much as it seems like everybody's excited for Brock Bowers, all we ever talk about, right, is do you have to have multiple early running backs? Is your running back dead? Do you the quarterback stuff is really important this year. We don't have as strong of late quarterbacks and how many tight ends, and people are drafting 4 tight end teams and all this kind of stuff. What if you just draft the superstar third-year player who is probably the greatest tight end prospect of all time, who's now got Clint Kubiak as his head coach, who turned Jackson Smith-Njigba into the leading receiver in the NFL? What if we just draft that guy? What does that mean for what do we do at running back now? What do we do at wide receiver? How do we construct some teams with Brock Bowers? I feel like I'm taking a little bit of crazy pills because everywhere I look, any piece of content I listen to, anything I read, any coach speak, any blog articles, any other fantasy writers are like, yeah, I think Brock Bowers is just going to go nuts this year. It's like the overall sentiment. And yet, in my little bubble that I live in, we don't really talk about Brock Bowers that much. It's just sort of accepted that he's awesome. And I feel like that's an easy thing to overlook, is just like we all just think this dude's awesome. Well, what does that mean? So I wanted to pull up a little bit of Brock Bowers data, pull up a little bit of maybe some coach speak, pull up a little bit of JSN data, and see what we can glean here from Brock Bowers. First of all, I just want to pull up just because it's fun. Brock Bowers was just a 3-year player, right, at Georgia. Hold on, let me get out of the way here. As a freshman at Georgia, steps into the SEC and catches 56 balls for 882 yards and 13 touchdowns. As a freshman at Georgia in the SEC, follows it up with another 63 for 942, only 7 touchdowns. Oh no, only 7 touchdowns. And then is on an even better pace as a junior before he, of course, declared for the NFL draft. But only plays 10 games, gets a little bit banged up. 56 catches, 714 yards, and 6 touchdowns. But even then, when we look under the hood, if you go back to his Georgia days, what's truly insane is as a freshman, if you can see on your screen, right here. Or over 3 yards per route run as a freshman tight end. Tight ends don't really do this. This is why Harold Fannin was special. But this is why Brock Bowers is just on another planet as a pass catcher at the tight end position. As a freshman in the SEC, he had 3 yards per route run, scored 1 billion touchdowns, right? And this was on real volume. He ran 293 routes. He followed it up the next year with 2.37, which is fantastic, especially for a tight end. And that was on 400 routes. And then he bounces right back to in the middle to have an overall yards per route run at 2.64 in college on an insane 224 targets on 961 routes, despite being young and in the SEC and frankly dealing with a little bit of quarterback play issues. We don't got to get into Carson Beck and such, but the guy was a superstar level prospect. And I know everyone accepts that, but I do think it's important to revisit even things that I'm not trying to change our minds. I'm not trying to change my mind. I feel very strongly about Brock Bowers, but like sort of revisiting these things to just not fall into like a zombie-like trap of just, yeah, I know this thing, I like this guy or whatever. Thoughts can evolve. But I think Brock Bowers specifically is a guy who was going higher last year in drafts, ever so slightly, but still going higher and going ahead of guys who you're going ahead of Jonathan Taylor, going ahead of running backs who, no offense to Devon Achane and Ken Walker and Amari and Hampton. I like all those guys fine. I don't really like Achane, but nonetheless, going ahead or going behind now after going ahead of frankly better backs goes behind now a group of backs that I think all have upside, all are going to score some fantasy points, but all also have like some very real flaws. I love Ken Walker, the football player, like everybody else does. Not a big pass catcher. Chiefs certainly paid him a lot of money. Chiefs have never really truly loaded up a back in quite a while with like major volume, at least in terms of you're our everything. It was like early Kareem Hunt. And even then he would come out on like obvious passing downs. They just have never really used the guy that way. They have an extremely high pass rate, which is good for scoring points and good for fantasy and all that kind of stuff. It's why we like Mahomes and Rice and Worthy and Kelsey and everything. But again, where does Ken Walker fit into that? What if the defense is worse and maybe they're not playing from as many positive game scripts? How does that impact Ken Walker? Right? I think the upside is through the roof, but he has flaws. That's not generally. It's like we used to draft Joe Mixon in the second round, and it was always just like, yeah, Joe Mixon is good. He's on the Bengals, but he doesn't. Right? Hilariously, Samaje Perine was still the guy back then. It's like, well, Perine's going to play passing downs, So it's like there's just a capped ceiling and a floor, at least on a weekly basis, that's a little scary, right? Achane has the Dolphin stuff. Amari Hampton, frankly, was bad as a rookie, and now has Keaton Mitchell to compete with. Kamani Vidal is still there, and a new offensive coordinator. That's like, is he still going to be the guy? And we all assume he's going to be the guy. That's why he's drafted in the second round. I like Amari Hampton too. I drafted Amari Hampton, but Brock Bowers is now going behind a group of running backs that all have like legit real flaws for second round picks. We're talking about last year you could get Jonathan fucking Taylor in the second round. 2 years ago you could get Saquon Barkley in the second round, and frankly this year you can get Saquon Barkley in the second round. Goes a little bit ahead, but there's a group of running backs in the second round now that like you could poke some pretty serious holes in all of these dudes. I like Drake London. You can poke some pretty serious holes in the Atlanta Falcons and Drake London. Like we have Pat and I rank the Falcons as our dead last ranked stack. Does not mean Drake London is bad. Does not mean Bijan Robinson is bad. But that means some pretty serious issues about the overall offense, the quarterback play, the risk levels of like, dude, what happens if Bijan gets hurt? Like this is catastrophic levels of disaster if something happens. So there's all these holes we can poke. Look, AJ Brown now going oftentimes ahead of Brock Bowers. I think AJ Brown's probably still going to be awesome, but he showed real signs of decline last year. He's getting older. You're moving to a new system. Once upon a time, if you're new to this, you probably don't remember this because every time now guys change teams, we get excited and they move up the board. Right? AJ Brown gets traded, we move him up, even though we already knew he was going to the Patriots. But we used to be worried about guys changing teams. Stephon Diggs, when he got traded to the Bills, was like a 7th round pick. Like we used to have this concern about guys changing teams. Now it's just wheels up, right? We get very excited. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I think AJ Brown is a totally fine pick, but there's a lot of flaws in the 2nd round. The one guy who's like not really flawed is Brock Bowers. We know he's a star, right? Some of these other guys, like we know Ken Walker is good. We definitely know Saquon is good, but the Eagles weren't very good last year. We know Drake London is good, but the Falcons have issues. So some of these guys we know are good. Brock Bowers, without a doubt, we know is good. No questions asked. Without a doubt, we know Clint Kubiak can craft a good offense and will funnel the ball to his superstar talent, right? Last year, Jackson Smith and Jigba went in the 3rd round of fantasy drafts. He hadn't truly, fully broken out. JSN had not before last year. The issue for him was exactly how good is this guy, right? And like, is he a slot receiver? Can he really be the focal point of the offense? He didn't have a lot around him. Cooper Kupp. They didn't have Rashid Shaheed till middle of the season, and they didn't even really play Rashid Shaheed when they got him. AJ Barner. Torrey Horton, who, I still kind of like, but Torrey Horton, like Jake Bobo, there wasn't much target competition for JSN. They won the fucking Super Bowl building the plane out of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Clint Kubiak is a talent maximizer who knows where his bread is buttered. And I think Kirk Cousins knows where his bread is buttered at this point in his career as well. And I think Fernando Mendoza is going to come in and know where his bread is buttered as well in the NFL. And still, last year, despite the fact that Brock Bowers was bad, right? He had an ADP, started out early 2nd round to mid 2nd round, whatever. How many tight ends will Bowers score? 6. The team stinks. So have you seen Trey McBride's season last year? The Arizona Cardinals won 4 games, and let's look it up. Let's just look it up. The Arizona Cardinals, right? Last year. Won 4 games, correct, I believe. In fact, Trey McBride did not start scoring fantasy points until I'll see you, Christopher. Did not start really, truly scoring fantasy points until the team fell in the shitter. They did not win another game after Jacoby Brissett took over. And yet, 169 targets, 126 catches, 1,239 yards, and 11 touchdowns. You know what really good football players do? They score touchdowns. How many touchdowns did you think JSN was going to score last year with Sam Darnold and Jake Bobo and Cooper Kupp? Clint Kubiak plus the combination of Kirk Cousins and Fernando Mendoza is such a high floor for an offense. Ashton Genty, we also draft him pretty early. We must think he's pretty good. Michael Mayer's a really good. Michael Mayer himself was an awesome tight end prospect. They're going to play a bunch of 12 personnel, which we like for everyone else. We think it's a the NFL is moving that way. Well, the Raiders were already doing it, and they already have an elite tight end duo between these two guys. I think when we say things like the team stinks, there's levels to this. Are the Raiders going to be the Chiefs or the Cowboys? Of course not. Were the Seahawks last year the Chiefs or the Cowboys? Right? Like the Bengals weren't even those guys last year. So let's look at the Cardinals. The Cardinals in 2025, again, did not win another game after week 9. So they would be, I think we would all agree that would classify as this team stinks. Correct? I think that's what we're saying is the Raiders are going to stink. Fair, fine, right? Totally fine. Let's see. Oh no, not leaders. Seasons. Team stats. So the Arizona Cardinals supported a tight end who essentially broke fantasy last year, right? And they could not win any games. Where the hell is my... here we go. The Arizona Cardinals. Let's see. Yardage. Let's sort the NFL leaders in yardage. Arizona Cardinals, 19th. So they only won 4 games. They got last in their division. They picked 3rd overall. in the NFL draft. They had a top 5 NFL draft pick. They were 19th in total yardage. They were 21st in yards per play. They were 23rd in points. They probably hit pass right, but they completed some passes because stinky teams are losing in the second half and end up completing some passes. So if the Raiders are going to be bad, but they have Clint Kubiak and they have Brock Bowers, if I start to connect those dots, that actually seems like a totally fine outcome for Brock Bowers in fantasy football. We're not picking him to win the Super Bowl, but touchdowns are one of the highest variance things you could ever possibly imagine. Trey McBride played on better teams and better offenses for multiple years of his career. Heading into last year, the knock on Trey McBride and why people wouldn't draft him at the 2-3 turn, some people, or that he can't score touchdowns, right? Because if we look back at Trey McBride's career, no one thought Trey McBride was bad. Of course not. Everybody thought he was good. Maybe not quite Brock Bowers good, but pretty fucking good. And prior to last year, Trey McBride had scored 6 touchdowns in 3 seasons. 3 seasons. He scored 11 last year on this bad offense, right? I don't agree with any of this. Bowers will smash, and I draft him a ton, but I think the gap between elite tight ends and the mid or even late right line tight ends is plenty of tight ends can put up a couple spike weeks now. Sure, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about, yes, anyone can score points by being on the field. No one is denying that. Guess who you can draft alongside Brock Bowers? No one is advocating to not draft any more tight ends with Brock Bowers. You can have those guys too, but there are guys like Trey McBride and like Brock Bowers, and maybe Colston Loveland will get there. Maybe whatever we'll get. See, I don't think ADP is the issue. See, this is why I said I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I just outlined how all of these guys in the second round are not really traditionally second round picks. They're not. They weren't. Maybe in 2020 they were second round picks, but running backs who don't catch passes, running backs on the fucking Miami Dolphins who have $150 million in dead cap and are trying to get the first overall pick next season. They're actively, speaking of stink, they're trying to lose. Amarian Hampton, is he even good? He wasn't last year, right? I liked him as a prospect. I think first round pick was a little overly aggressive. How many touches is Amarian Hampton going to get? Ken Walker, all of a sudden, we're not concerned about Ken Walker. Ken Walker was like a 4th or a 5th round pick for several seasons because he's not a pass catcher. He's a home run hitter. And he's a good one, but he's a home run hitter. Right? Who am I forgetting? Saquon Barkley. We're talking about stinky offenses. We watched the Eagles last year. Now they don't have AJ Brown. Like, these guys all have flaws. And the running back position is, you want to talk about the gap between scoring, the gap from mid to late. Why can't I just draft Cam Scatterbo? Josh Jacobs is available in the 4th round. If we're he's practicing. Bucky Irving is a pretty good football player. He goes in the 5th round now, right? That all the Jacksonville Jaguars running backs are available after pick 60. They're probably going to score some points if we're doing the score point stuff. I like I said, maybe I have a completely different I think Brock Bowers is already the best receiving tight end in the NFL. What he did last year in that shit situation should be viewed as a positive. I think it's being viewed as a negative. If we go right, so Trey McBride dunked on all the tight ends. This is why there is the gap that people are talking about closing in total points added. Last year, Trey McBride added 103.46 points on Underdog. On DraftKings, sorry, it changes my filter when I move. He added 139.77 points. That is 80, almost 90 points more than Brock Bowers added, who was the tight end 2 in points added, by the way. As bad as it was in total points added, he missed time, and he was number 2 in total points added at the tight end position. George Kittle was number 3 at 44. Tucker Kraft was number 4 at 36. No one else added more than 28.67 points in full PPR DraftKings scoring. The gap from the superstar tight end season to the middle to late tight end season, like late fantasy tight end season, is as great as it's ever been. Nuclear weeks. Trey McBride had 5. George Kittle had 3, who is an elite tight end, by the way, when he's healthy. He tore his Achilles, so that's a different. No one else had more than 2. Spike weeks. Trey McBride had 7. George Kittle had 4. Dallas Goedert had 4. Good for him. Scored 10 touchdowns. Darren Waller is next with 3. No one else even got to. There's 3 guys that got there. Usable weeks. 15. You want floor plus ceiling? You drafted Trey McBride last year, and he basically never put up any duds. The gap between the superstar monster season at the tight end position and the mid to late tier is actually not even close. It's really not even close. And so, right, you say, well, you're pointing out Trey McBride. I think what Brock Bowers did last season and what he's done as a real on the field talent, he's just as good as Trey McBride, probably better as an overall, a more dynamic receiver. Trey McBride was a little PPR scammy last year. The issue with Trey McBride this year is the Cardinals type stuff. How Trey McBride got there last year was like, we're saying that they stink and we can't draft them. Well, that's the reason why they got there, is they stink. So that's why I will still draft some Trey McBride. But Marvin Harrison got hurt. Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback, and we don't know if Jacoby Brissett is going to be the quarterback. They drafted Jeremiah Love. Things have changed a little bit for Trey McBride, whereas Brock Bowers, things have changed in the positive direction. Things could not have possibly gotten much better. He is, but for all intents and purposes, the new Jackson Smith and Jigba of the Clint Kubiak offense. Clint Kubiak just the other day says he's kind of a football robot in a good way. He's a football robot from heaven. He's a Cadillac out there. Whatever the fuck that means, it seems pretty bullish. We've got to get the most out of Brock. Wherever he goes, he's been successful in college and high school. Whoever has coached him, so I can't say enough great things about him. I love his work ethic. He's a standard bearer. Kirk Cousins said he's already the best tight end in the NFL. Kirk Cousins has played with some good tight ends in his career. If we want to skate to where the puck is going, I want to get out ahead of. We used to draft Travis Kelce in the first round. There was one year Travis Kelce had the ADP of like 6 in best ball, because when the superstar tight end who is Trey McBride was, for all intents and purposes, a superstar wide receiver 1. When you get a superstar wide receiver 1 that you get to play at tight end, where every other team is running all this 12 and 13 personnel with blocking tight ends, and they're right. The Rams are playing 5 different tight ends. So sure, more tight ends are on the field, but we have to pick the ones that are going to score the fantasy points. We don't get to draft team tight end. You know what I mean? We don't get to draft. Just give me anyone with a tight end label on the Rams. No, they got 5 dudes. I got to pick who's going to score the fantasy points, and they're going to divvy it up between those guys. Give me the guy who's the new Jackson Smith and Jigba for Clint Kubiak at the tight end position, who is probably the greatest tight end prospect of all time, who is functionally a superstar wide receiver 1. Again, in the second round, if I had to take him in the first and the top 10, whatever, right? People are like, the ADP is the problem. The ADP is the feature, not the bug for Brock Bowers, for me. He could potentially be the entire linchpin to this whole season. I put it on the thumb that is he the skeleton key? You know, that remains to be seen. But I feel a little bit like it's just like, I can't draft a tight end in the second round, or the Raiders aren't going to be good enough, or like we look for reasons not to draft the tight ends because it feels so much cozier, right? When you finish your draft and you're like, yeah, I took 3 late guys, or these people are drafting 4 now, whatever, fine. Like I took 3 late guys. I'll just, because you can just say, well, they'll all score some points, and I hopefully I get a good spike week at the time, and I got my early running backs, and I got my early wide receivers, and I got quarterbacks I like, and I just said, fuck it, give me the cheap. But when the superstar elite tight end, which is, if you don't think Brock Bowers is, that's fine. I can't quibble over an individual player take. But if you believe in the talent, like I believe in the talent, and you believe in Clint Kubiak, I think everyone should believe in Clint Kubiak. He's the best pick in the second round. You want your running back firepower. You want your wide receiver firepower. You can still get it with Brock Bowers. You don't have to do this. Do I take H-An? Do I take this running back? Then, I feel more comfortable with early running backs. You can still do that. Take your running back in the first round. Take your running back in the third round. Whatever. You can still do it. He gives you a late quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. That sure, Kirk Cousins probably starts the season, but Fernando Mendoza is starting football games sooner rather than later for the Raiders. He's the first overall pick, and we're all saying that they're not going to be that great, right? They're not going to make the playoffs or something like that. That's fine. Now I got to pick at 160 in this quarterback environment that's really, really brutal. I take most of my quarterbacks. I can't believe how early I have 2 quarterbacks on all of my teams now. Wouldn't it be nice to have the first overall pick in the NFL draft paired with the best tight end in football, right? You want to offset that ADP. That seems pretty good. I'm extremely excited for Brock Bowers. I feel a little bit like I said, he's just being glossed over a little bit. Not that people don't like him, not that, and some people clearly don't. But if there's a guy who I think has the floor is high. We just saw the floor last year. He still added the second most points amongst all tight ends. We think he had a shit season, and he still added the second most points among all tight ends. He's still very young. He's growing as a football player. Like I just don't really even see the downside. I don't really see the downside. I got no arguments. If you prefer, underdog, half point PPR, man. Half point PPR is whatever. I don't even really have much to say about it. It's touchdowns, fluky bullshit. But it is kind of funny that people are willing to say, well, I'd rather take the late tight ends because of on underdog scoring, because of half point PPR. And the same thing applies to running back. But we can't. How the fuck do you dare not draft multiple early running backs? But it's like, well, touchdown variance. That's what you just said. I'm not saying you're saying that, Shriyath. I'm saying that's what people will say. It's like, well, on half point PPR, by the way, Trey McBride was pretty good on half point PPR. He outscored every other tight end by 1 million. He added more points by 1 million over every other tight end. We're going to pop into the DK Millie and get Freestyle Friday started. Got me all jazzed up over here. In the immortal words of Frank Reynolds, you unzip me. You unzip me over here. It's all coming back. It's all coming back. I'm very excited about Brock Bowers, okay? In case you can't tell. What do you mean? All you say is true, but how do you rationalize taking him if the roster is unlikely to win, statistically speaking? What does that mean? If Brock Bowers was round 1, would you still be overweight? No. If I have to take him over Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and Amon-Ra St. Brown and stuff, I mean, overweight maybe. I don't know. I think after if we go by ADP here, after call it CD, I mean Genty, right? It depends where he was going, but I don't really like James Cook. God, I need to get more CD on DraftKings. Excuse me. But I like Genty. I even draft I have non-zero of these second round guys. I have 24% Brock Bowers. I frankly wish it was higher on DraftKings, but if he were a first round pick, no, it's very different. The whole point that I tried to elaborate on is when you get James Cook does not play passing downs. He's on the Buffalo Bills and he had a great season last year. We were never drafting James Cook at the 1-2 turn before. And nothing has really changed except he had a little bit better season than he's had in the past. Don't even think James Cook is bad. Just saying that's not generally the 1-2 turn, right? James Cook at the 1-2 turn is a little bit like when we just took Brian Thomas Jr. at the 1-2 turn. Different. The specifics of the pick are different, but that's sort of what has happened. We don't really know what to do after JJ or whatever goes off the board, and we're like, well, he's on the Bills and he was pretty awesome last year. Let's lump that guy in there. But I really like Ashton Genty. Who has more concerns, Brock Bowers or Ashton Genty in the same offense? We say that they're not going to be very good. Ashton Genty wasn't all that great last year, despite being a superstar prospect. He goes ahead. He goes ahead of Brock Bowers, right? We just talked about Devon Achane, like if we're holding these things against Brock Bowers, how the fuck are we not holding them against Devon Achane? Goes 15th overall. Ken Walker, we discussed. Amari Hampton, we discussed. Chase Brown is the reason Chase Brown goes where he goes is because like you feel really cozy. He's never going to win you the league, but if he stays healthy, he's not going to lose it for you either. Like Chase Brown is never going in the top 5 next year. You don't have anything to gain. You just may not lose with Chase Brown, and that's fine, right? I draft some Chase Brown. I draft some of these guys, but if we're comparing them, right? If the cost is the problem because of the people that go next to him. What is all that appealing about all of those other guys relative to Brock Bowers? Right? And we say, well, I would just rather wait on tight ends. Like, what's the difference? Can't you wait on other positions? On DraftKings, especially, you don't really get punished at all for taking Brock Bowers or Trey McBride, right? If you just want to say, well, maybe Trey McBride's going to run it back. And Trey McBride is starting to get to a price at times that I do quite like. Let's see. Sorry, I was getting excited. Yeah, I don't think I ever said people are out on Bowers. At the very beginning, I think I said, let's do CD because I need to get that 5% up on CD. I'm not sure I'd characterize Bowers as a flawless gem. I mean, there is literally Jahmyr Gibbs is not flawless. So I agree. Like, if I speak in hyperbole, I'm just trying to prove a point. Raiders have as many or more team level issues as the Falcons. I mean, I could not possibly disagree more with that. Like, I completely and utterly disagree that the Raiders have more team level issues than the Atlanta Falcons do, or that the Miami Dolphins do. Yeah, rule number 1, can't draft Bowers because he just went. Somebody's listening. Zank. I do need some rules. How much exposure are you advocating? I understand 10 to 12%, but I have 24% and I have more than that on underdog. So, exposure is, I need some rules, by the way. Rule number 1, can't draft Bowers. Okay, we accomplished that. And I'm not drafting Devon Achane. Let's do. Here, I made fun of Ken Walker. Let's do Ken Walker. All right, now I need some rules. CeeDee Lamb, Ken Walker, give me some rules. We'll build it in. So ADP matters. Your ADP rank is different than others. I'm not following what you guys are saying. You guys got to elaborate a little bit more. Bowers legitimately has overall wide receiver 1 in his rank. Like, no one ever said ADP doesn't matter. I specifically said it matters. Of course. Would you draft Ken Walker in the first round over Justin Jefferson? No. Right? The only reason those guys are going there is because the reason why those backs go in the second round is because no one knows what to do. Full stop. Those are not really second round pick archetypes. Not really. Gibbs, Bijan, CMC, JT, maybe even Saquon, James Cook, Ashton Genty, sure. And Genty, I think you could argue against. But Ken Walker, Chase Brown, even Derrick Henry, like, these are not archetypes that traditionally are second round picks. Derrick Henry is a little bit of a unicorn. So, like, anything that you hold against one of those other guys, we should hold. Right, if we're holding it against Brock Bowers, we should hold it against all these other guys. And so then what he provides at the tight end position is a ceiling that no one else, other than probably Trey McBride, can access. We just saw how many points those guys added. Let's look at the running back position. The gap, as we say, the absolute superstar running backs, no question. Absolutely no question. The top, right? Last year, CMC, this is on DraftKings. CMC, Bijan, Gibbs, JT, even last year down to Achane and James Cook, added a lot of points. But once you get past that, it's okay, so let's even say Derrick Henry and Chase Brown. So what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 backs. Okay. 8 backs, like, we're true difference makers. Then you just get into all this mush. There's a span of 20 guys that all added at least more, probably, that all added at least 25 points from 25 to 75 or whatever. So the gap at running back is once you get past those top couple guys, which is why we take Gibbs 1, Bijan 2, CMC 6, Jonathan Taylor 8, James Cook, Ashton J, right? So the next thing you know, okay, there's your 8. But then there's more guys like Chase Brown, like Achane, whatever, that go in the second round. And most of them are probably just going to be in the mushy middle. You're taking them because it feels cozier to make sure you get a running back, right? It doesn't feel very good getting into that mushy middle without a running back. So we take these guys higher, and we don't really know what to do, right? The Rasheed and Neighbors thing, I think, has thrown the biggest wrench into all of this. That's why AJ Brown is coming up now, because we were like, God, what do we do? Like, are we really, like, Chris Olave went in the second round, right? We don't really know what to do in the second round. And so that's what I'm advocating for, is the market essentially doesn't know what to do. We're definitely admitting to drafting non-difference makers. It's not anyone can have a good spike week. That's why they go in the second round. But I'm advocating for, instead of drafting these like super flawed running backs, how about the best receiving tight end in football with Clint Kubiak, who just made he's his new JSN, right? The story writes itself. Yes, we are doing the drafters wheel today. Lamb and Walker, like no, I'd forgotten I drafted. Let's do Zay. Okay, we're gonna make the first 4 picks. We're freestyling different. I started the freestyle, ranting about Brock Bowers, of course, but I started the freestyle drafting CD and Ken Walker and Zay Flowers, and I'm gonna take one more guy, and then I need some more. And then I need some more rules, so you guys can have a moment to. Okay, we can make this happen. 4 running backs by round 10. I'm in. What is 4 by round 10? So, oh God. Let's do. Why is this doing this? Oh, sure. Javante. Okay. That's what I need to do 4 running backs by round 10. That's rule number 1. I need 2 more rules, and the team is CeeDee Lamb, Ken Walker, Zay Flowers, and Javante Williams. 2 more rules. Oh God. Save this. Ragnar, save this. Well, I like that. With a we need a little bit of a permutation because there's positional stuff and correlation stuff and whatever. But I like that idea. Ooh, interesting. Okay, hold on to this one. Not so narrowcast. This is a great one. Please remind me when we get to the end of this draft. We're going to do another draft afterwards, and I'm going to make sure we get the prompts before we start. Like I said, you guys you unzip me. That was really funny. I got excited. I honestly just thought we would talk for like a couple minutes and everybody be like, yeah, dude, Brock Bowers is awesome. This is fucking boring. And I was like, I keep drafting Brock Bowers. I think it would be silly if I didn't. Like, dude, you're hammering the shit out of Brock Bowers. Maybe you should discuss him a little bit more. And I didn't really realize you never know what you're going to get yourself into. You know what I mean? In these types of situations. How much more valuable does Bowers become in a shallow start league? Full PPR. I think he's better in full PPR. And I would say more valuable. I'm admittedly not a guru of like changing player value based upon like season long rules. Not my area of expertise. I am obviously best ball focused, but I would assume the fewer guys you start, the guys that you know you're going to start every week. That's sort of my big thing from a redraft perspective. That is like so huge for me. Another reason why I like things like zero running back. The fewer decisions you have to make every Sunday, the better. because it's very difficult. Like if you have this like balanced team where you just have a bunch of sort of mediocre guys and you have to make like 4 or 5 different lineup decisions every single Sunday, whereas like with any you could draft a hyper robust running back team or something too, right? That would be the same thing. Where you're like, look, I'm just making my 2 wide receiver start sit decisions every week and living with that. I obviously, as you guys know, tend to lean more zero running back, and there's lots of reasons why. We can discuss zero running back at a later date, but I know like in the main event when I draft my FFPC main event team this year, like I'm gonna probably have an elite tight end and I'm gonna probably have 4 awesome wide receivers that I know I'm starting every single week, and then I have to figure out the running back stuff over the course of the season. Hopefully some running backs pop up, become available. Hopefully I hit on some in the draft. And, by the end of the season, I've built a super team. But it's because I drafted with the intent of not having to make all these lineup decisions every single Sunday. We just did this one with the first name, 2 first names. Let's see. Okay, I love this. All right. We're doing, what did we say? 4 running backs through 10 rounds. 4 running backs through 10 rounds. What did I just say? Draft like Brock Bowers. Okay, well, first of all, I'm taking Lamar Jackson, obviously. Draft like that is brilliant. Shout out to you guys. I every single time I know somebody's going to come up with something good. Bowers got hurt. 4 RBs through 10. And what else do I got? Somebody give me something else. 4. Okay, sure. Let's do that. 4 players from. Ooh, can I do that with yeah, fuck it. Let's try it. Let's try it. 4 players from the cojones on the table list. 4 cojones players. There you go. That's good. I like it. All right. Those are we started the freestyle a little late. I started riffing and rambling and hopping into drafts, and it wouldn't be me streaming if it wasn't chaotic and all over the place and long-winded, for sure. Every time I look at a roster with a tight end or quarterback early, it looks like it has no shot. I mean, whatever it looks like is fine. And maybe get new glasses. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how to respond to that because that's just like a feeling, not based in anything. Why would an early tight end not mean it has no shot? Trey McBride was like one of the best picks on the board last year, including to advance. Let's see. What do I have to do? Okay, Bowers got hurt. 4 running backs through 10 and cojones on the table. Shit. I mean, I hate Judkins, but this team sucks ass. Ken Walker, Judkins, and Javonte Williams. But I have to take 4 running backs, so we have to live by the prompt or die by the prompt. What round is this? 6. Okay. Wait, Lamar's A. We got a little Cowboys stack going. I'm fine with this. See, when I see this team, I think this has no shot. Other people see Bowers teams and they're like, no fucking chance. And I see Bowers teams and I'm like, this is a printing press. And other people see this team and they're like, dude, awesome. This team rocks. And I'm like, this team sucks ass. Like, it's fine. But I think we talked about this a lot, right? Drafting and being willing to draft teams that make you uncomfortable, right? That I think that comment was great, and I think everybody experiences that. Like, I feel that about different teams than you feel that, but we all feel that. You draft a team and you're like, this stinks. Like, I don't like this. But like have the humility to say, other smart people think this is good. So like, let's see if I can draft it as like, can I make a good team? If I think I'm a good drafter I should be able to draft a good team. And I'm sure plenty of people think I'm a shit drafter. But like if I think I'm a good drafter and I'm going to spend all this time doing this, but I can't draft a good team like with one player I didn't like, or like, oh, I'm so scared of the early tight end. Like it's one fucking pick. You like people are like, you absolutely cannot draft Malik Neighbors. I'm like, that's fine if you don't have the same take as me. But like we say week 17 is all that matters. If Neighbors is even like fucking 80% Malik Neighbors by week 17, like you don't think that could be worthwhile having in the final, like at low ownership in the 4th round with other like try like you're not a good enough drafter to draft a good team with this guy that like because we could be wrong about all this, right? The Kyle Shanahan, who knows if he'll be alive or whatever his quote was. Like that's what I love about this particular Friday show is I have to draft some shit that I'm not used to drafting, and frankly that I don't like drafting. But it makes my portfolio better, and I'm going to be better for it, and I'm going to be a better drafter for it. Let's see. Do you think? Yeah, definitely Michael Mayer. Do you think Bowers is more valuable in playoff or cumulative format? I do think cumulative. I think the pushback that someone would have on any elite tight end is you still need big games at the right times. That exists for anything. And the playoff format is inherently trickier at the onesie positions. So I understand why in playoff formats people draft more of them and maybe want to spend cheaper. I get it. I totally get it. I still think they're smashes because what they can do and gap the field 45-point fantasy games. Like I know Kyle Pitts popped up for the big one. I know other guys will have good games. But when you draft cheap tight ends, what you're really betting on is you get good games, but the big guys don't have the big games at the right time. That's really what you're betting on. Dak is gone. You fuck sticks. I need one more running back in the next few rounds. Okay, if I can't get an elite tight end, I'm gonna take Harold Fannin. Is Fannin okay? I know the Browns stink. Am I allowed to spend an 8th round pick on another young superstar? I'm kidding. I definitely understand the Browns hatred for sure. But yeah, I that's to me like when I draft plenty of when I don't get Brock Bowers, I do like Colston Loveland. I'm not currently really drafting Trey McBride. I don't love Tyler Warren. I do like Fannin, right? But like I draft plenty of 3 late tight end teams. Plenty. You're not going to get one guy on every single team, nor am I advocating for drafting one guy on every single team. But what I'm really betting on, I don't see much of like, there's these mega breakouts. Ooh, Jalen Warren. When I need one more running back. Nice. That's it, right? That's 4. Bowers got hurt. 4 running backs through 10 and 4. Okay, so I still got to hit some cojones players. Though I would classify Lamar as a cojones on the table player, but and of course Bowers. But we'll get into the cojones on the table players later. But yeah, I draft plenty of late 3 tight end teams. The general premise though is like I get enough, right? They sort of ping pong around usable weeks. I get a couple spikes here and there, and hopefully I get good games in the playoffs, right? That's the hope is you luck box into like, oh man, TJ Hawkinson scored 24 points on DraftKings today. That's awesome. But what you're really betting on is like Bowers and McBride and Loveland didn't go crazy because they can, and I'm not trying to, Loveland is being drafted like that. I'm not trying to make up add any commentary about Colston Loveland specifically as a pick. But we know Brock Bowers and Trey McBride can do it. They're different. They're in a different we're hoping Colston Loveland gets there, or people are hoping Tyler Warren gets there. But these guys are in a different tier of football player. Like I said, they are the wide receiver ones on their offense. There's a and again, maybe Colston Loveland gets there. There is a definitive tier break essentially, or there just has to be when you're a tight end who is the not just like Like Colson Loveland might be the wide receiver 1 on his team, essentially, from a target share perspective. But when you are like a superstar, all pro level wide receiver 1 on your team, and you are a tight end in fantasy. And that's the thing about Brock Bowers is Trey McBride was really still just ultimately used as kind of an old school tight end in line, not doing much down the field. Brock Bowers will do stuff down the field. McBride does do stuff after the catch, but Bowers is like he's just kind of a wide receiver who we get to play at the tight end position. There just has to be a tier break. Sometimes guys drop in and out of that grouping, right? Travis Kelce used to be in that grouping. He is no longer in that grouping. There was a question about the Ravens, and I got to go find it because it was a good question. Let's see. So I want to get. I'll get to the Ravens question before. So this is fine. On drafters last year, only one of the top 20 rosters had a non-running back on or non-wide receiver in the first 4 rounds. So this kind of analysis is interesting and mostly useless. And I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm just being blunt, right? There's no ill intent. There's no anger. There's no hate, right? In these kind of situations. But we have to be blunt and straightforward with each other. I could not possibly care less about that. And then maybe that sounds silly to some, right? Hold on. I need some wide receivers. I also need another quarterback. I'm not particularly loving this, if I'm being honest. I like Michael Pittman, but I'm going to do Wandale because I might need Cam Ward on this team. But what happened last year is not indicative of what's going to happen this year. What happened last year at a macro structural perspective is even less indicative than what happened last year, right? What happened last year is based upon one way an entire NFL season could have played out. And it's based upon how we drafted fantasy football teams last year. A, we're not drafting fantasy football teams the same as last year. And B, that is a sampling issue. It's not a logic issue. What you're trying to do is 100% correct. I don't care about what teams were specifically drafted. That creates a limit on my sample. What I care about is what could have been drafted. Could you have won on drafters, right? So there's only 100,000 teams. That's only 100,000 different permutations of what could have been drafted. And each team only goes one out of every, right? So like Trey McBride's only on 1 out of every 12. He's not even on 10,000 teams. That's not very many Trey McBride combinations, actually. And it's biased by the fact that we're the ones drafting it. I'm just going to take Goff. I know I don't have much of anything to go with him, but I feel very desperate at the quarterback position because they're all going off the board. But what you want to look at is what could you have drafted, not what did everyone draft, right? So that's when people go look at the winning team or the winning teams or the finals teams. It is an inherently biased sample that you're looking at. You don't want to look at just what people did draft because that limits you're missing the point. What you want to know is what could have been drafted, right? What could I have done better? Not what did those guys do that ended up working? What could I have done? Right? You shouldn't be limited by what other people drafted. It's again limiting the scope of your study that you're trying to create. You're trying to figure, right? What is your end? What was the point of the study you were trying to make? Is what wins? What can win? Right? That's what you're trying to find out, what can win. And you're limiting most of what can win by only looking at what people drafted into that specific. It's like I'm going to play MLB DFS tonight on DraftKings.com. And if I look back and I lose and I look back and I'm like, let me look at the top 20 teams. and I look at all those and I say, well, nothing else matters. Only what those top 20 teams were today. It's you're almost never does anyone get to the stone nuts in any of these formats, DFS, whatever. But why? But we don't consider the stone nuts. Why do we only consider what people draft? Right? It's one of the silliest things we do in this world. It's what all best ball. Go look at a study. Everything is of all the teams drafted in Best Ball Mania over the course of the last couple of seasons, and it's not. The intent is amazing, but it's not. We're missing the true story because we're limiting it to just what other people drafted, right? And we're limiting it to what other people drafted, even though we're playing this because we think we can beat them. But then we use what they did to say, well, that's the bar. That's the thing I need to strive for. It's very unique. It's a very interesting little environment that we're in. What is your cutoff? What's your cutoff for your second tight end to not draft a third? I never draft a third with Brock Bowers, so that one's an easy question, or almost never, I guess. Let's see. I definitely want Michael Mayer. Where was should also be taken into consideration that Kirk Cousins was the one who weaponized Week 15 Kyle Pitts, and now he has Bowers. That seems good. Who had the most 20-yard rushes last year? I don't know. Go to Pro Football Reference. We can look it up. All right. I need to start getting some cojones on the table, players. So, cojones on the table, player number one of how many do I have to get? 4? Keaton Mitchell. I have 42% Keaton Mitchell on DraftKings.com. There's one. Now, the problem here is I need to draft like Brock Bowers is hurt. Okay. But I need wide receivers and I need cojones on the this is very tricky. Fannin is sort of a cojones on the table. If this doesn't work out, Lamar or Fannin probably meet the criteria, but we'll try to get some late ones. I'm just in a lot of trouble at the wide receiver position. And so I think I have to pull Jalen Naylor up here because if Brock Bowers is out, other pass catchers on the Raiders are benefiting, but I didn't want Fernando Mendoza on this team or Kirk Cousins because if Brock Bowers is out, right? The whole reason why I'm ranting about Brock Bowers and drafting a ton of Brock Bowers is about Brock Bowers. It's like if JSN was not on the Seahawks. Imagine how we would talk about the Seahawks if Jackson Smith and Jigba got hurt. That's the exercise that we're having here, right? Is like, what happens without Brock Bowers? Well, it all goes to shit. He's the reason why we're excited about it. Caught your and Pat's last video. Thank you. We drafted a 5-5-5 team yesterday. Love your take on drafting cheaper Ravens pieces. Thoughts on Mark Andrews? Yeah, Andrews is a funny one. I actually was going through I brought it up in the Discord yesterday. We were discussing, who are we discussing? Oh, like we were discussing some later tight ends, Greg Dulcich, TJ Hawkinson, whatever. And there's varying opinions on all of those guys. And something that I think I noticed about how other people draft Greg Dulcich is they're often people who like Malik Willis, but they like Malik Willis because he's a cheap quarterback who runs. You don't really like Malik Willis because Greg Dulcich is so awesome. Greg Dulcich is whatever. He's fine. Late round tight end. He's going to run some routes. I get it. And the lack of target competition. But this dude is entering year 5 and he's on his 3rd NFL team. And they're going to be really bad. And he has a lot of significant flaws. Now, I think he has some upside and whatever. But people will draft an outsized amount of Greg Dulcich on Malik Willis teams And then even if you're right about Malik Willis, if you're wrong about like you could be wrong about Greg Dulcich just sucks. Greg Dulcich doesn't have this ginormous target share that we're hoping and praying for. It's Malik Washington or Chris Bell or Caleb Douglas or Jalen Tolbert or whatever, right? Or there's just a different late tight end you want. Or yeah, you wanted Brock Bowers or whatever. And you draft 10 Malik Willis teams. And because you think you need to stack, you end up putting Greg Dulcich on a ton of those, 6 of those or 7 of those. Well, now, like, what happened if you've created this extra element of risk, and it's like Malik Willis could actually be a good pick, and you drug him down because you put too much of a crappy late round tight end on the team. It's not that big of a deal. He's a late round tight end or whatever, but roster spots are valuable at the tight end position because the more whiffs you have there, right? It's not like wide receiver where, if you whiff on somebody, you still got 7 more guys at least. At the tight end position, if you whiff on somebody, you might only have 1 more or 2 more. Or like, oh, you took 4. Well, guess what? You took 4 because you took a bunch of late ones. They're probably not going to be awesome. What if they get hurt, etc.? Let's see. Okay, I have. There's Mendoza. That's funny. I mean, the clear and obvious thing here. What's my next pick number? 160. Okay, I have to take Trey Tucker. For the Bowers is hurt. We have Naylor and we have Tucker. Naylor? Hardly knew her. And then hope that the cojones player comes back here. Is Jordan James the best pick on the board at the moment? I would not classify him as the best pick, but I would definitely classify him as a good pick. I have Jordan James. We can find him super quick. 187 overall, and he goes at like 215 or whatever. So I'm with you. All right. Cojones on the table. Player number 2, Ryan Flanoy. I have 53% Ryan Flanoy. Not bad to go on this team with the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, Javonte Williams stuff. Also quite in need of some late wide receiver help on this trash team. But this is coming together kind of nicely, I'll be honest. If you had to only draft one structure in every draft for the rest of your life, robust. Oh, come on. It's 0 running back. What is, and I mean this seriously, not even because I think it's the best. I've talked about this in the past. Probably haven't talked about this enough this year. The reason why, like, people dislike 0 running back for fine reasons. If everyone, and this is the mistake that I made, say, a few years ago, when the market overcorrected to more early wide receivers and we were overvaluing, right? Today I pointed out the flaws, if you weren't with us in the second round, of Achane and even Saquon. And some people are pointing out flaws of Genty, which absolutely exist. James Cook. Like, once you get to the 1-2 turn, we're into a tier of running back that I just think we don't have to dislike him. I drafted fucking Ken Walker on this team. But we should acknowledge the flaws that exist amongst those guys. Like, I think we've got a second round now that's like really sketchy. Because not even because like they fail, like second round picks don't really like fail. But they're like, I like to call them, like, we talk about dead roster spots. They're like the walking dead roster spots. Like, they're playing and stuff, but you really wanted someone else. Like a different structural decision was far better, right? Like that would be also an argument against Brock Bowers. But if the market had shifted or when the market shifted years ago to this was flipped. Like the second round was all wide receivers. A lot of them were overpriced. And I screwed that up. And the pivot was everyone now drafts hero and zero running back teams. It's all everyone does. Everyone believes in it because it was winning. And I think the market was a little wrong with how it priced guys before. But we took it the pendulum swung too far into the wide receiver stuff. And frankly, tight end stuff and elite quarterbacks. It swung too far away from the early running backs. We got insane discounts on backs that should not have been going as cheaply as they were. And I didn't say, everybody's doing this. It was dumb. I just was blinded by my zero RB love because I do prefer that structure. But we do it. I'm doing it now, and I care more about it now because everyone has decided doesn't work anymore. Doesn't work. Can't do it. 12 personnel and nobody has wide receiver threes and all this kind of stuff. It's like, but everyone has decided that you can't do it. And so fewer and fewer and fewer of my opponents are playing for the scenario where next year you look at that top 20 from drafters and it's a bunch of zero RB teams because Brock Bowers smashed and Justin Jefferson smashed and Rashee Rice was fine and you got him in the third round. And then, you took Cam Scatterbo in the fourth or Bucky Irving in the fifth, or you like Bashal Tootin or what, and those guys smashed. And Jaylen Warren is the new Kenny Gainwell, and Rodgers throws him 100 passes, and he was a great value. And some rookie running back comes out of nowhere, right? Or Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, and the Jordan James drafter is now getting the San Francisco, like we got with Jordan Mason a few years ago. Like those scenarios exist, but no one will draft for them because we've all said you can't. Because it feels uncomfortable because the last 2 years early running backs were good, right? Okay, flag plant, or what is it? Cajones on the table, player number 3. Trey Harris, wide receiver, Los Angeles Chargers. So I need one more of those guys. And then anything more around the Raiders without Brock Bowers. But that's why, like, what gets lost is like, is zero RB bad or good? Is robust RB bad or good? Do you need X amount of pick? Like, I don't know what you need. How could anyone know what you need? We don't know how the season's going to play out. We don't know who's going to get hurt. We don't know, we don't know. There's teams that are better or worse than we expected, right? Some people think the Raiders are going to stink. I think they're going to be all right, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they do stink. Like, no one expected Patrick Mahomes to tear his ACL last year, or Malik Neighbors to tear his ACL, or George Kittle to tear his Achilles, or Cam Scatterbo to snap his leg. Those things define the season. And we don't know what they're going to be. So how can anyone say a certain structure can't win? Because structures are only built around these scenarios that play out. All right. I'm going to take Cajones on the table, player number 4, Pat Freiermuth, and make this a 3 tight end team for the 3 tight end bros. So far, I should recap the team. I guess that would be smart. CeeDee Lamb, Ken Walker, Zay Flowers, Javonte Williams. And then we had to draft, because, of course, this is the Brock Bowers show. I did actually draft, and I did not get him. This son of a bee at the 111 took Genty and Bowers, of course. Bowers got hurt is the scenario I have to draft for, plus 4 running backs through 10 rounds and 4 of my air quotes cojones on the player on the oh boy. Whoops. Cojones on the table players, meaning my, flag plants, the guys that I believe in the most, that I'm taking a ton of. The question earlier, I should have remembered. Mark Andrews. Where I started getting to is I've drafted too much. I think Mark Andrews is meh. He's fine, and I do like the Ravens, and I'm going to probably be overweight Mark Andrews. But where I was going with the whole Greg Dulcich, Malik Willis thing is I found myself looking into this mistake that I think we make is if I don't get Zay, I still take Lamar sometimes. And then maybe I don't have Browers on that team, or maybe I do. And I'm just like, well, I need a stacking partner for Lamar. I default to too much Mark Andrews on my Lamar Jackson teams, especially without Zay Flowers. So like I have an outsized amount of Lamar plus Mark Andrews just because it feels cozy and like the correlation makes me, maybe I need a tight end there, whatever. And so too much of my Ravens bets are centered through Lamar and Andrews. When I just think Andrews, it's really Lamar and Zay and the cheap wide receivers that I love so much about the Ravens. So I don't want to make my portfolio overly dependent upon Mark Andrews. And I don't want to make my Lamar Jackson portfolio, right? There's portfolios within portfolios within portfolios. I don't want my Lamar Jackson portfolio to look like, wow, it's way too tied to Mark Andrews, even though I think Mark Andrews is fine. And I want him on some of those teams, but I don't want Mark Andrews potentially dragging down. Mark Andrews goes in a good range for running backs that I like personally. And so I don't want to drag down. That's sort of my Mark Andrews take. I do think he's kind of dusty, but I think they extended him for some fucking reason and let likely walk. I would have done the opposite, but whatever. I'm not there. I think Mark Andrews is probably going to score some fantasy points because they're kind of shifting the way that they play offense, and he's sort of the lone tight end left. And there's a lot of, right, speaking of like lack of target competition, if Bateman and Tez and Surratt and Lane are not very good, we know Zay's a star, but there's a lot of targets open for Mark Andrews. Okay. Well, we're going to do cojones on the table player again. I don't have Ray Davis on a Ken Walker or okay. We're going to do Ray then. We're going to do Ray. That's 6 running backs. That's probably where we're going to leave it because I want to stack up. Let's see. Not a bad price on Tank Dell. I'm trying to get a little bit more Tank Dell. I don't imagine he's going to be available to me, but and there he goes. Random question. Damad Bowler. Wonderful. Are there any tight ends that go in round 17 or later that you feel could finish? Ooh, I like this question. Let me think about this. Hold on. I think I'm just going to take Mayer because I don't trust. I really admittedly don't trust you guys. I'm not. And you just never know. Yesterday we did the 5-5-5 draft. Check that out on the channel. It's in the Legendary Sickos feed or whatever here on the Spike Week YouTube channel. Like and subscribe and all that shit. And in the 5-5-5 yesterday, Pat and I drafted against each other and against a bunch of other sharps. It's a bit brutal. I mean, I like my team, but I screwed up because again, I didn't just get your guy right. We talk about just get your guys, and I didn't just get my guys at the end. I tried to be fancy and have a little bit of have my cake and eat it too. And so I didn't get one of the Ravens wide receivers come back to me in the 20th round because I was being silly. So this is too early for Michael Mayer, but nonetheless, I will say to that question, I do think Michael Mayer could finish in the top 12 if Brock Bowers gets hurt. Is Freiermuth in the 17th or later? I will say, ignoring injury to answer your question, because I think it's cheating with injury. I'm going to say Terrence Ferguson because I think he's showed some upside. And if, we're all terrified, I'm absolutely and aren't you worried is the Rams play all their tight ends and none of them are all that useful. But I know they took Max Clare in the second round this year, but they took Terrence Ferguson in the second round last year, and he was used as a real receiver down the field. He was earning something pretty real down the stretch. Like I said, they weren't just using him in Colby Parkinson is just sort of the check down bullshit tight end who also happens to score some touchdowns on that because they just leave him open most of the time. Whereas Terrence Ferguson's doing real downfield stuff. So again, without an injury, yeah, I think if the Bengals go scorched earth. Mike Gesicki, Mike Gesicki is like ultimately the slot receiver. They just keep chasing T on the outside and they say, Yoshi, man, I'm sorry. Enough is enough of this. We're going to let Gesicki run a higher percentage of the routes. He could definitely figure into that top 12 equation. I like it. Shriat says, give me the field stretching Rams tight end late. Yeah, I'm in on that. Arroyo. Yeah, somebody asked about Arroyo earlier. My problem with Arroyo, if I'm being frank, if I'm being blunt, like I was being blunt earlier, is I think he sucks. All right, now I'm gonna get Tez. Another cojones on the table player for me, Tez Walker. Let me see what my wide receivers are like. CD Zay, Jesus Christ. CD Zay, Wandale, Jalen Naylor and Trey Tucker, Ryan Flanoy, Trey Harris, Tez Walker. That's not that bad. I know I've unstacked Jared Goff, but what are you going to do? Really, other than unstacked Jared Goff, this is a pretty sick team. For a Javonte Williams team, of course. Torrey Horton goes, I'm going to take Elijah Surratt on this team. I like even double stacking late Ravens wide receivers. Okay. What we are going to do is I have to get this Google sheet to you guys. If you've not joined us before, every draft all summer, if we do a drafters main event draft, the good, I just realized somebody put damn in the spreadsheet. If I do a drafters main event draft this summer, I get to give away a free ticket to the drafters main event. Though it's $15 value, and so all you have to do to enter is, of course, be watching the show. There's a Google sheet link in the YouTube chat. Go in there. In the very first column, you will see the folks who've done this before putting their name in column 1, or column A, I guess I should say. And at the end of the show, we will spin the wheel with everyone's names on it to give away that free ticket. We're going to hop into this drafters draft right now. And it looks like, sick. It's almost full. We only need 3 more, but we're going to take a super quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to do this drafters draft. We're going to hit those prompts so I actually nail them this time. And then I will give away a free ticket at the end. But super quick break. We'll be back in just a second. Hey, guys, if you are playing best ball this year, I promise you're going to want to check out Spike Week Premium. We're the very first company building an entire suite of best ball tools, everything you need to have to crush your best ball drafts. I like to call it your best ball co-pilot. We have the very first overlay tool, the very first portfolio tool, and a brand new draft optimizer. So the Draft Hacker overlays, our Draft IQ portfolio tool, you can look under every nook and cranny of your teams and your opponent's teams to find an edge in your drafts. You can optimize your drafts based upon the plan that you have with our draft optimizers, your target exposures, players you want to draft together or don't want to draft together, stacks you want to target. And of course, with the Draft Hacker overlays, you can customize every single thing you want to see on your screen while you're drafting. Playoff schedules, exposure. Well, I don't know what happened just there at the end, but I think you guys got the point. I think we got the point. And our draft filled here. So let's pop on in to drafters. I don't know what the hell just happened there. Good old StreamYard. Rule number 1, don't take. Okay, I need 3 rules. Some people had some good ones earlier. I don't remember what they were. Let's see if I can remember. Oh, so this I like this being on the right side of the board. Somebody posted pull guys up for unique combinations. Okay, so we're gonna do that. Let's see. Pull up every pick What is on? Okay. If someone, I want to put Brock Bowers on this team because, yeah. So we will see if the 111 and 112 allow me to do so. But we'll find out. Pull up every pick, which is something technically I could do, even with Brock Bowers. So I need one more. Blue uniforms. I would choose this, except you use the phrase soft fade. And I'm not you automatically get disqualified from your prompt being used if you use the phrase soft fade. Just fucking say fade. Draft only. I can't do that if I take Brock Bowers. So every other pick, is that fair? If I would like to take Brock Bowers, 80p. I have to pull up the ADP only next week. We'll do it. Because I mean, I bet people will be surprised. I pull guys up, but I also draft a ton of he's the top guy in the ADP list. Here, let's appease the people and select Jonathan Taylor. I know I didn't pull up every pick. I already failed. We already failed. Let's see. But he's a blue jersey, right? Okay. I'm taking Bowers because, come on, we have to take Bowers on a team. When I rant about him for. Hello, Josh. Ooh. No wide receiver over 6. Let's do it. Fuck it. Let's do it. We've been having a little bit. The prompts have been good, but I haven't been. No wide receiver over 6'2". Okay. All right. I enjoy these ones. We did one last year, so it was the freestyle Friday was a little bit more of a spin the wheel Friday, but people would submit ideas and I would spin the wheel and I would have to draft with that prompt. And one of them was don't draft any players who ran faster than a 4.5 40. And I thought it was going to be really difficult, and it was not. It was shockingly simple. A lot few. So it really blew my mind. So I'm interested to see if the shorter wide receiver thing also ends up being the case, because what I learned is we think about speed all the time, and I do. Who doesn't love a fast football player? And when you work your way down the board, there's a lot, like an absolute shit ton of guys, including a lot of the best players, who didn't run that fast or who aren't like that athletic. It's pretty shocking. Now, there's obviously some mutants, but dude, Derrick Henry wasn't that fast. CeeDee Lamb wasn't that fast. It's pretty shocking when you go through it. So we'll see what about the heights. I'm going to be doing a lot of searching. Let's see. We're going to be searching a lot of guys. Get rid of this. I can get rid of this. And I got too much shit going on here. Let's get rid of all of mine. So the 3 rules are draft Brock Bowers. We can add another. Yeah, we can. I already failed everyone from the SEC, although I already failed pulling guys up. Yeah, it depends. You can pull multiple guys up and create some unique stuff, but it does get a little bit funky. Like pull up so at 34, right? If I pull up someone who actually goes more like 39 and then take him with a guy who goes at 42 or whatever, or 44, like taking 39 and 44 together at 34 and 39, right? You kind of have to do some stuff like that. I love this. Coolon says Bauer's going to have a 7 to 8K salary in DFS, and people are going to have the same convo as he's nuking. So I've been trimming every week in the second half of last season, as someone who hosts a DFS show every single Sunday morning, okay. I have to pull somebody up. Huh. Does neighbors count? What's the 3? Oh shit, 6'2". Okay, Burden. I don't think Burden is 6'2". I think I'm better at 40 times than I am at. Okay, phew. I was like, there's no way he's 6'2". No wide receivers over 6'2". Fuck. Pull. I will attempt to like sort of quasi pull up every pick, but I can't take wide receivers over 6'2". How about Waddle? I have like basically not drafted Waddle. Waddle's not 6'2", right? No way. 5'10", not even fucking close. Boy, I'm bad at the heights. I not something. I think I know who the guys are tall, but I don't know the difference between the guys who are like 5'11" and 6'2". I think this. I don't even know how tall Malik Neighbors is. I imagine drafting 35% of Malik Neighbors at 6 foot. See, I probably would have guessed 6'2". Height is just absolutely not in my bag. The rule on pulling up should be the player's ADP has to be higher than the pick after your current pick. I like it. That makes sense to me. No QBs over 6'2". That's not as difficult as it seems either. I mean, they're probably not gonna be very good. Some good. If your suggestion did not get used, please rejoin us as much as possible. Rejoin us as much as possible on Fridays. Keep submitting them. They're super helpful, and it's very fun. And there's like go a whole draft without double tapping any position is fun. We've had similar ones like that, Mac. I like the don't draft your second running back until round 9 or later. I like that. I like the no wide receiver under 6 foot is pretty fun. A lot of good suggestions. Oh, and if you don't think I'm going to start looking up wide receiver heights now after every single draft, yeah, you don't know me well enough, because now I'll become fixated on this stupid shit. I'm so happy I didn't have to deal with this, by the way. I'm very happy. Serious question for you. Are you worried Rasheed Neighbors' fall off has made running back way more viable? Start. I have a few squads with running back in both Rasheed and Neighbors. Yes and no. I think. I mean, I'm drafting a shit ton of Neighbors because I want to get him combined with like everything possible. But like I'm also. It's an acceptance of risk. It's not a proclamation that I know Malik Neighbors is going to be good to go. Other people are worried about his injury and his effectiveness this season, and those are reasonable concerns. My bet is that what do I win if that is wrong, right? Because that's what the market is like. This is one of the best wide receivers on planet Earth. one of the best fantasy wide receivers on planet Earth. And the market is like, you can't draft him in 2026. Undraftable, right? Is the word often comes up. Go find a Twitter engagement farmer who's got their thread and, all the stuff about ACLs and cleanups, and they're studying his gait at celebrity softball games, right? All that kind of stuff. Okay. This is pick 58. What did we say? What's the rule? The ruling should be the player's ADP has to be higher than the pick after. Oh, okay. Okay. Shit. Okay. Well, we just screwed that up. I just accidentally took Quinshon Judkins. All right. 0 for 2. Two fucking Judkins teams. Hey. At least he's not 6'2". I have no problem if somebody wants to fade Malik Neighbors on any format. I honestly have no problem. I think on all formats, what do you win if you win with Malik Neighbors? Like, if he's back in training camp and practicing, the regret that some people will have is going to be so entertaining. I'm very, very frustrated about this. That now I can't take Parker. I can't take Bucky. Caleb. Pull up Caleb. Pick 82. Yeah, sure, whatever. Fine. Boy, I hate this team. That probably means it's going to be good. I'm attempting to pull up every pick where I'm 4 for 6. 4 for 6. I'm pulling up every pick. So yeah, add it to my hot dog tally. No wide receivers over 6'2", and we have Luther Burden and Jalen Waddle. And of course, draft Brock Bowers, which has been a mission accomplished. Deal. Henny says we want an invite to the pizza party if our suggestion ships. That's a deal. I'll buy something. If you gave a suggestion that I used in a draft on one of these Friday drafts, you'll obviously get Spike Week Premium for the rest of your life for free, for life. And I don't know what you'll get a piece. I'll make sure you get a piece of the winnings, not the pizza party thing. I know it's a funny joke, but I'll make sure. It's only fair. I fear 4 to 8 game absence will be too much to overcome a marathon. Right. Again, that's one possible outcome. Wife's home. That's one possible outcome. Right? That is a fear. That is something aren't you worried that he misses 4 to 8 games? Sure. What if he doesn't? They already came out and said they're targeting training camp. Why? I don't really understand why we speak so differently about him. Is it just because he's awesome? Like, we're more worried about him because he's awesome? They said they're targeting training camp. They said they're working on it. He's playing hard. He's participating in celebrity softball games. I struggle to see what it feels like, because he's Malik Neighbors and he's so fucking good, that we're analyzing him more deeply than we're analyzing Tucker Kraft and even George Kittle and Daniel Jones and the ramifications of Daniel Jones. And like, it's like, yes, aren't you worried about that? Sure. Aren't you worried he doesn't miss those? Aren't you worried Malik Neighbors just turns out to be fucking Malik Neighbors and you could have had him in the 4th round? I'm more worried about missing out on the guy who probably goes in the 1st round next year, when I can get him in the third and fourth. I'm far more worried about, like, I fear the opportunities that I passed on more than the misses. I'm accepting risk every name I click on a best ball team. The things that I regret are when I had an opportunity to take the discount because of everyone else's fear. I'm trying to pounce on everyone else's fear, not succumb to mine. Right? I'll succumb to mine when everyone else is not being fearful, right? Everyone else is not worried about Devon Achane. That shit's terrifying to me. Okay. Pick 82. Pick 82, pick 82, pick 82. QJ's too tall. Addison. Jordan Addison, he definitely ain't 6'2". But we're into the land of tall wide receivers, though. Okay, so now I want to get another guy. Waddle. Okay. Harvey, I can't do. No real running backs. Oh, Josh Downs. Boom. Another short little fella. Preach, Cody. Where would you draft Neighbors if you knew he was going to be 100% for the last 8 weeks of the season? Pretty fucking high. That is a great question. It's a great example of what I was talking about earlier of, like, don't you think you were good enough drafter to draft? If you told me you got to figure this shit out for 8 weeks, but then the hypothetical, these things don't exist in the real world, but just if you said, look, you're just assume you get a 0 for 8 weeks for Malik Neighbors, but for the 8 weeks following, you get 100% healthy Malik Neighbors. Where would you draft that guy? I would say higher than whatever the market is going to say. Like, probably by a lot. Like, I always struggle with, because the market is ultimately what matters. So this is like a bit of a cop out. But what I would say is, and now if the market was like, oh, then he's fine, I'm taking him in the first round. Now, then I would probably fade him. But like, assuming he's going to go pretty late, then he's going to miss a lot of time. I would probably draft him on like every team and just say, because now I know the reason why he falls is because we don't know. And there's nothing that a human being fears more than uncertainty. And everything about Malik Neighbors is uncertain. Like, Rashee Rice is like not even really that uncertain. I mean, it's fucking weird, and he's a dipshit, but it's not really uncertain. He's going to be out of jail soon, and which is hilarious to say, but it's true. He's going to be out of jail soon, and he'll be healthy when the season gets here. There's nothing really that uncertain about Rashee Rice, other than, like I said, he's an idiot, which I guess makes things uncertain. But anyway, the reason why Malik Neighbors falls and why everybody's so fucking terrified is because we don't know. He could miss a lot of time. He could never be himself again for the rest of his life, for all we know. Or he could show up to week 1 and you're like, oh, have a 100-yard game or whatever. That the range of outcomes is he's fine. He's totally fine to he's literally never the same again in his career. And so people fear that. And they don't really care that much about the positive outcomes, even though the positive outcomes are just as likely as these negative outcomes. The mushy middle is where, usually the rest, the actual most likely stuff happens. But he falls like, so like, if you tell me I know exactly what I'm getting, I can draft a team to survive for 8 weeks, brother. That's easy. I'm not saying it's going to survive and be, at the top, and I'm not saying every single team's going to be good, but if I know what my end objective is, that's the other hard part about best ball. We're back on the clock. Is Bo Nix? Bo Nix is not a pull up here. Okay, so, oh God, short king team, Wandale, Luther Burden, Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs, and Wandale Robinson. I think we're achieving the no one over 6'2". We're achieving the no one over like 5'11". No, I forgot what I was gonna say about neighbors. See, so I don't feel the same about Travis Hunter, but it's because he's not Malik Neighbors. He's a corner. But I understand the point for sure. What was Wandale's ADP? Because I got to take somebody at cheaper than Wandale. How about Aaron Jones? Jonathan Taylor, Quinshon Judkins, Aaron Jones. Only have Caleb right now, and I may have screwed that up, but I think I'm going to get to a point here where the quarterbacks are going to fall in line to this team that I drafted. But we had to draft Brock Bowers. We did. We have to pull up every single pick that I'm making ahead of the last pick that I made, and then no wide receivers over 6'2", which is has been very fun, honestly. Luther Burden, Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs, and Wandale Robinson. This is so true. There are few worse resources than a clip of a celebrity softball game to judge the health of an elite NFL athlete. He was wearing a brace anyway. Yeah. I said this the other day, so I apologize for repeating for people who were here. Using something like that as damning evidence is absolutely admitting to the rest of the world you lack critical thinking skills. And I'm not trying to be mean. There's sometimes I lack critical thinking skills in the things that I think about. Probably did it on the show today. But you're not seeing the forest. You're only seeing the trees. It's the most absurd thing I've ever heard. So what you're saying is Malik Neighbors went out there and played, and he didn't get approval from anyone, and he's not concerned about his NFL career, and the Giants aren't managing this dude with kid gloves. He is the future of the entire organization. Him and like Jackson Dart right now. His doctor had to sign off. The team had to sign off. Malik Neighbors has to sign off. They probably got second opinions. He probably had to work out before it. They had to put this brace to make sure he would never get hurt. Like, if anything, it's bullish that he's out there. Does he look perfect? No, who gives a fuck if he looks perfect? They thought that this guy who you don't think is worth drafting ever, not even in the 4th round, they said, yeah, go play softball, dude. It's fine. We're not worried. And you're worried? It's like, what am I missing? Well, I know what I'm missing. Critical thinking. Okay. Does Cam Ward count as a pull-up if he is? Yeah, he has to be. Okay. Let's do Cam. God damn. I got a room of some decent falling running backs and can't take advantage of it. That is such a shame. What a shame. Yeah, that's Berg says. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills with this neighbor stuff. NFL players can't even walk to their own car without approval. That's what I'm saying. You think he went out there? Like, you really think he went out there and like no one gave him the thumbs up? That dude has to get the Giants and his doctor's approval to do fucking anything. Let's see. Let's pull all the way up Omar. Let's pull up my boy Omar. Short King Summer. How tall is Omar? 6 foot or 5'11"? 6 foot. I knew that one a little bit better. The most recent guys that I've looked at and studied from their prospect days, I can maybe remember a little bit better. But once you're past the rookie season, I forget how tall you are every single time. It's true. No justice, no beer. That's good. Justice for Evie. Those are good. I personally think the upside. This is the other thing that's so true, right? It's the same thing with sort of the Brock Bowers stuff. You don't like him as much as me. I get it, but like, and you're not willing to put as much of your portfolio on Malik Neighbors or Rashee Rice as I personally am. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm an insane person. I'm putting my cojones on the table this year. I'm gonna live with the results of drafting some of the guys I think are undervalued later in drafts, and these risky guys. Like I'm admitting to trusting in the upside case and dealing with the results, even if it doesn't work out in my favor with Neighbors and Rice. And I'm coming around on George Kittle, and I'm coming around on some of these guys. So anyway, but if you don't want to put your cojones on the table with Malik Neighbors, that's fine. But I don't know how anyone could look themselves in the face and say, I'm such a skillful fantasy drafter, and I'm going to turn down the guy who's like the 106 overall next year in most scenarios. Would probably be the 106 right now if he had not gotten hurt in the 4th round. The dude's like falling to the 4th round. Like, you can't take not even a little, 0 total. So there's not a price that you would take that guy. You're never willing to say, like, I mean, there's a scenario in which he's fine. There's a scenario in which I don't even need him for the first part of the season. There's a scenario he is the late season hammer that you're drafting Carnell Tate for, who has no chance of being as good as Malik Neighbors. And he's not. The Tennessee Titans stink, right? If we're worried about Bowers, we're worried about these other guys. It's just crazy to me. It really is. Again, whether you take 2% or 20% or somewhere in between, you're a crazy person like me or a more sane person. I find it really hard to believe that the juice is not worth the squeeze on at least a small subset of teams with these kinds of guys. Okay, I can't take Naylor. I don't know. I have to reach. And so, honest to God, I think Flournoy is 6'2". 6'1". Okay. I was a little bit scared, but I was gonna add it to my hot dog tally if he was 6'2". Well, I guess it says no over 6'2", so 6'2" counts. For some reason, I was thinking it had to be under 6'2". I'm actually more concerned about Nagy than I am Neighbors' knee. At least that is quantifiable. Yeah, I'm most concerned about Jackson Dart as a passer, not about all this Giants drama is all silliness. I'm concerned about that Jackson Dart is not a good enough passing quarterback in the NFL. That's what I'm concerned about. Health stuff is whatever. I'm not a fucking doctor. Like I said with Karain yesterday, like, dude, I'm not a prison guard. I don't know how Rashee's doing. How could any of us? I do need some running backs now. How about Sean Tucker? Haven't drafted him yet. Just get a little bit something different in the portfolio. We have 2 quarterbacks, Caleb Williams and Cam Ward. 4 running backs, Jonathan Taylor, Quinshon Judkins, Aaron Jones, and Sean Tucker. 7 wide receivers, all of which are under 6'2". Luther Burden, Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison, Josh Downs, Wan'Dale Robinson, Omar Cooper, and Ryan Flournoy, with, of course, Brock Bowers at tight end. So sitting pretty on. Dude, so, yeah, this is so true. Sign me up for Jackson Dart getting benched. Malik Neighbor, like let Dart suck for a month and Neighbors is slow, and get me Jameis in there with a fully healthy Malik Neighbors. That dude made Wan'Dale Robinson a superstar. That dude made Cedric Tillman a superstar. And now Wan'Dale, I think Wan'Dale's actually pretty good, but you get the point. Isaiah Hodgins and whatever. You don't think later in the season Malik's feeling better and Jameis is out there slinging it? You don't think that could be pretty good for best ball tournaments? They play the Cowboys in week 17. I think the easiest thing to do in this game is just envision a scenario. It's just what opened my eyes more to lots of different players and lots of different structures. Like, envision a scenario, and most of the time it's like completely plausible. Or think about what's the scenario that this thing wins. And it's like usually you're just describing a scenario that happens like most NFL seasons. It's like, yeah, the guy starts out slow and comes on strong down the stretch, right? Superstar talent just is a superstar. Like, oh yeah, he was hurt, but then we looked back and like, yeah, I should have bought the dip. Or like we talked about this, like last year over the summer, we have these aren't you worrieds every single year. We never go back and think about them again. We're wrong all the fucking time. But in the moment, it like you can't shake it. You know what I mean? The fear, because it's the uncertainty. It's terrifying. Yeah, Jameis made Jerry Jeudy look good. That's so true. Let's see. Oh, damn it. Okay. Fryermuth is technically pulling up. He's also after Sean Tucker. So now I got to pull somebody up, and they have to be after Tucker. I think or after Fryermuth. Jeez. 100% of my JT teams have Ray, and 100% of my Burden teams have Ray. Wow, that's shocking. That might continue here in a second, but Ray Davis is a cojones on the table player. I know that's not the prompt for this draft, but doesn't mean we can't. Doesn't mean we can't keep putting our cojones on the table. Oh wow, Darnell Mooney's still going up here, huh? I guess Ray is not really a pull-up, huh? Okay, let's. All right, let's go do Chris Brooks then. Really start. Look, we're in the 16th round. We're into the $1 auction territory. If we're in a pull-up draft, I should really, truly pull. Like, what is the fucking difference between these guys in the 16th round? Pull some 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th round. Pull a bunch of 19th rounders all up onto the same team. Doesn't matter. Probably 18th, 19th rounders. You have a lot of Ray. Yes, I do. I think Ray is it's possible he's become my highest owned player. I don't know that for sure. Let's go to all my teams. Exposure percentage. He is. Look at that. Ray has passed Ryan Flournoy, Malik Davis, Keaton Mitchell, Malik Neighbors, Tyjae, Trey Harris. He has passed all of those guys a 63% on underdog, a little less on DraftKings, and a lot on drafters. That's a lot of Ray Davis. A lot of Ray Davis. Illinois with the most money, though, because I took him on the 555 yesterday. Hey, Jameis. I'm not glazing Jameis as a real life NFL quarterback. It's like it's a little bit like the Kyler Murray discussion. Is like everybody just loves Jameis because he's fun and he says silly things and he does silly things on the NFL football field, but he's not really good at playing quarterback. I mean, he's better than Max Brosmer or whatever. He's just not very like you're not winning much with Jameis Winston as your quarterback. But he's fun and he's going to sling it around and do silly stuff. And that's great. But so people get a little bit overly excited about Jameis Winston, like real life wise. But I don't think there's any denying that from a fantasy sense, there ain't nothing wrong with him getting in there and slinging it around. I would say don't watch, but it's kind of like you do want to watch. It's like watching a car wreck. You know, it's not fun and you hope everybody lives, and everybody's okay, but you can't look away type stuff. You know what I mean? Okay, we did Brooks. So then we need to do I should have taken Neighbors on this team so I could take Jameis. Now we'll do Malik Davis. Now shit's really starting to get thick in the pull them up categories because I'm into the 220s. And my last guy has to be essentially someone that has not even been fucking drafted in this tournament. Neighbors, MCJ says Neighbors would have put up 2,000 yards and 20 touchdowns with 17 games of Jameis. 100%. Yeah, exactly. This team is dead. As we all know, the late round running back market is completely and perfectly efficient on June 5th. What's Malik's 226? I said. So I have to have somebody after 226. Is there a running back here? Yeah. How about my boy Ty Johnson? I do so much Ray, and I obviously much prefer Ray, but I'm doing a little sliver of Ty Johnson, especially on the PPR sites, DraftKings. I tend to take Ty Johnson with Ray Davis when I do it as a little like, look, Ty's going to play if James Cook misses and, sort of a weird by the Bills backfield without James Cook. But I should probably do him just a sprinkling without Ray Davis too. Similar to the conversation, the combinatorial stuff we had before. I shouldn't have him on every single team, even though I do want to have them together. I don't need Ty. If I have Ray Davis, I don't need Ty Johnson, but I do like drafting Ty Johnson alongside Ray Davis a little bit more than by himself. So you laugh, but Versailles says we were never wrong on Ray or Tez Walker just early. And you're joking. But I got to say, I think there's a little bit something to this. Not that like we should literally never give up on players, but like Ray has proven to be a pretty solid NFL football player. It's very small sample and whatever. He's already really old, but Tez showed us like little bits. And I don't want to like overly fixate on the hits from this type of situation, but I do think a lot about Parker Washington and Alec Pierce and Kamani Vidal and frankly Kyron, where Kyron, whatever wasn't much as a rookie, but I loved him as a prospect. I really liked Alec Pierce as a prospect. I liked Parker Washington. I even liked Parker Washington when he was doing absolute fucking nothing in the NFL. And sometimes it takes time for these guys. You know what I mean? And it's I still want to sort of, I think it's a little more fun too. Like I'm trying to have more fun this year too. And like, right? Do you believe in this thing or not? That's sort of how I feel about Tez Walker. I don't imagine most people agree with me. And probably because they're right. But speaking of, okay, so he's at 233 ADP. I need another wide receiver or a tight end who have an ADP after 233. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. I know who it is. I know who the last pick is, and it's perfection. And it fits perfectly seamlessly into this conversation that we're having right now. But I think there's something to be said for like, you shouldn't, you can't just like in the face of real life production, just continue to be like, trust me, he's good. Trust me, he's good. But there is something to be said for trusting yourself a little bit and not fully giving up, especially when we start to see some signs of some fun. So like I'm taking Jalen Royals on this team, the perfect fit for I should double check. I don't think he's over 6'2". Yeah, okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's like 6'1". But Jalen Royals right now, Rashee Rice out. Rashee Rice in prison. Jail, sorry. County jail. And Jalen Royals getting to play with the ones. Like most years, we just give up, like, you'd be like, well, he didn't do anything as a rookie. It's over. But like we were drafting him last year in the same situation, except honestly, they had Hollywood and Juju, right? The situation's better for Jalen Royals now. He didn't do anything, but I liked him as a prospect. I drafted a bunch of him last year, not just because, you know, of the Rashee stuff, but like, I don't think Xavier Worthy is that good. I don't think Tyquan Thornton is anything to write home about. Like, why can't he be something? But we give up so quick. You know what I mean? We give up from one season, and like growth is not linear. If there's anything we've learned from Alec Pierce, we've learned from Parker Washington, and we learned from Kamani Vidal, is that sometimes guys just don't do it right away. Sometimes they don't do it for a couple years. Devontae Adams didn't do it for a couple years. Now he was out there playing, so it's a little different. But like sometimes, like we want it to be this like very clear and obvious story that makes perfectly logical sense in our brains of like, right? Well, rookie year, he like barely played. And then year two, we started to see some, you know, his yards per route run got better and he played more snaps and he ran more routes and he did this. And so year three is the breakout. And like, life doesn't work that fucking way. And definitely football development doesn't work that way. I think back to, I'm old, right? This is 20 plus years ago. When I was coming up as an athlete, I thought I was going to be a basketball player. My best two sports undoubtedly were basketball and baseball when I was growing up. While I polished this up and used this as my bullshit reasoning to draft Jalen Royals and Tez Walker and Ray Davis, there is a link to a Google Sheet in the YouTube chat. If you would like to be entered to win a free ticket to the Drafters main event, the good folks over at Drafters have given me the ability to give away a free ticket every stream that we draft a main event team, which is, of course, what we just did. And we'll spin the wheel here in just a second. But like, I played football since I was little. My dad was a football coach. I was okay. I was small, but I was quick. I wasn't that fast. So I actually played quarterback, and like I was athletic, but like it took a lot of working out and maturing and getting bigger and stronger and faster. And specifically, the summer before my senior year, I still thought like I'm going to play basketball at like a D3 school or something like that. I quit baseball because I didn't really like it, but I'm left-handed. and I was a pitcher. So, I do have regrets about giving up on the pitching thing, because that was maybe something I should have stuck with. But anyway, I worked out a lot, and I sort of hit a little bit of not really a growth spurt. I didn't like grow a ton, but I got fat. You just mature a little bit. And I became fast. I went from running like a 4.7 540 to a 4 540 in a summer. And it was like all of a sudden, like, oh, you're bigger, and I got strong, and I got fast. And all of a sudden now I'm getting college football offers. I moved from quarterback to we ran the wing tee. So I was a running back, when I played slot receiver / running back, whatever. I was Eli Heidenreich of the Mascoutah High School offense. But it was like growth wasn't linear. If you looked at me after my sophomore, even my junior season, I was a shitty high school quarterback my junior year. And my senior year, I was a Hall area football player with the real college football offers. Like, it just comes out of nowhere sometimes. It didn't mean I was bad before. It just means maybe I wasn't ready. It does whatever. Like, that's how I feel about Parker Washington. It's like, I always believe that there was something in there. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away. Alec Pierce, sometimes it doesn't happen right away. So, like, if I believed in Tez, if I believed in Ray Davis, if I believed in Jalen Royals, but everybody else has given up, the market has given up, that's a great time to still continue to try to pounce on it. Kind of a small extra lesson to head into the weekend. I will say I'm gonna spin the wheel here in just a second. If you can enter your name, got a few a lesser crowd here entering today, but that's okay. I'm going to try to work on something today, because the latest episode of this week's episode of Legendary Sickos was the 5-5-5 draft yesterday. So there's not a new episode coming tomorrow. It's a little bit more chaotic this week with DK Best Ball Week. I'm going to try to work on something that might be a little bit shorter, like solo video myself this afternoon, but be on the lookout. I'll still try to get something out there tomorrow morning for everybody. But let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see who wins a free Drafters ticket. It's a good week. Good week for the doc. Good week for everybody to have a better shot. Shout out Doc. Shoot me a message in Discord. I will, if this is your username, just confirm that I just need to confirm your Drafters username. Send it to the people. I'll make sure that if people are missing their tickets, I'll make sure that gets sent out today. So everybody have a wonderful weekend. So a ton of fun. Freestyle Fridays are my favorite days. If you didn't get your prompt to use, bring it back next Friday. We'll run it back. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and go draft some of the guys that you loved that maybe haven't popped yet. Your Jalen Royals, your Tez Walkers this weekend. It's getting hot here, so we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna go touch some grass. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.